Histology is the naming and the identification of the various types of tissues within the human body. As far as the classification of tissue types, there are 4 recognized tissue types of the body: epithelial tissue, connective tissue, muscle tissue, and nervous tissue. We will be concentrating on epithelial and connective tissue. With regards to epithelial tissue is classified in 2 ways. The first way deals with the shape of the cells. We can have flat-shaped cells, which are called squamous. We can have cubed-shaped cells, which are cuboidal. And we can have very long column-shaped cells, known as columnar. The second way one can classify epithelial tissue is based on the number of layers. If there are multiple layers, we call that stratified. Both of these are stratified. And if we have one layer, we call that simple. Now there is a type of tissue that is one layer but looks like it's more than one layer, and that's called pseudostratified. So we will be incorporating the cell shape and layers as we review over the next several slides. On this slide, we will recognize simple squamous epithelium. Now we will be looking at this tissue right along in this area, and notice that it's very thin. That indicates that we have one cell layer or simple. Also, when we look at these, they are not column shaped, they're not cube shaped, so we are looking at squamous. Therefore, this is simple squamous epithelium, and this is what one would expect to see within the lungs. This slide, however, clearly shows cuboidal cells, and we can see that nice cubed structure. The dark dot is the nucleus. This clear area in there is the cytoplasm. The outside portion is the cell membrane. Now we're looking at this area right here. So we have one cell layer, that would be simple, cube-shaped cells, cuboidal, and it lines a body cavity, thus epithelium. On this example, you will notice that we have these very long column-shaped cells. So we have columnar. Again, this right here is one layer of column-shaped cells. And we can tell that because the nucleus right along in here is fairly in line with one another. So we have our simple columnar epithelium. In addition to that, this arrow right here is pointing to this bubbled structure here. This bubbled structure is known as a goblet cell, which secretes mucus. Here we have pseudostratified ciliated columnar epithelium. Now we will begin with this right here is very long, so we have columnar cells. It lines a body cavity. This lines the trachea, therefore it's epithelial. And as we notice, the nucleus jumps in locations. Now, it is one cell layer, but because the nucleus bounces up and down, it gives the appearance of being more than one layer, thus pseudostratified. The little hairs that we see across here are the cilia. They act as a cleaning mechanism to remove mucus and dust from the trachea. So we have pseudostratified ciliated columnar epithelium. Here we have the palm of the hand, and notice the many layers that we have. They're all very flat shaped, and we can outline a few of those. So we have many layers of flat cells, therefore we have stratified squamous epithelium. Shifting over from epithelial cells, which function to protect and for secretion and absorption, we move to connective tissue, the most widely distributed tissue in the body. Now with this, we will begin with adipose tissue. With our adipose tissue, we can see our very thin lines. Do not confuse this with simple squamous epithelium. Now, one of the ways you can clarify that this is adipose is look right there. That dot right there, that's the nucleus. That dot right there, that's the nucleus. This inner portion is filled with lipids, and that lipid or fat droplet is so heavy that it pushes the nucleus to the side of the cell. So on this, we would like for you to identify adipose tissue, nucleus, and the lipid droplets. Here we have areolar connective tissue. Now notice it looks like a small child has used a pen and pencils and just had a field day. But when we look at this closer, we'll see these dots representing the different types of cells that we have. Those are going to be our fibroblasts. We're going to have our very thick collagenous fibers and our very thin elastic fibers. And all together, this composes areolar connective tissue. Here we have the reticular connective tissue. Now it is stained dark. You'll see the little dots being the reticular cells. It's typically found associated with the liver. And any of the little lines that you see that are connecting to it, those are all the reticular fibers. So identify reticular fibers, reticular cells, and reticular connective tissue. Here we have hyaline cartilage. Hyaline cartilage is also found in the trachea region. Now as we look at hyaline cartilage, what we would see is that this area above here is where we would find the pseudostratified ciliated columnar epithelium. And then we move down from there and we would locate our hyaline cartilage. Now with this we have the background being very smooth looking, and that's the rubbery matrix. With connective tissue, the matrix is the non-living portion of the cell. So what we have with connective tissue and cartilage is we have few cells spread out within a large area of non-living matrix. So this is our rubbery matrix. Right here, the dark purple dots that you see are the cartilage cells, and those are called chondrocytes, which means cartilage cells. The little cavity that they're sitting in is called the lacuna. So you should be able to look at this slide, identify hyaline cartilage, rubbery matrix, lacuna, and chondrocyte. Finally, on this slide, we see elastic cartilage. Now, don't let the elastic cartilage and the hyaline cartilage confuse you. As we look at our matrix back here, you'll notice how rough the matrix looks. Now, that's in contrast to what we see with the smooth-looking rubbery matrix of hyaline cartilage. So we have our elastic fibery matrix, that's our non-living portion. We still have our little chondrocytes, and the cavity that they're in is the lacuna. So we have elastic cartilage, the lacunas with the chondrocytes, and our elastic fibery matrix. If you feel the top of your ear, this would be the cartilage that you're feeling.